Usually when I record, I try to set the background up and go through a whole process. But sometimes you can lose steam in the setup, in the process, and getting prepared. Sometimes you just need to let loose. There's a story that I like to tell you. I was talking to a friend of mine. Everybody call him Big B. His name's Darren. We were talking about upbringing. When I, summed it up, the gist of it, it dealt with the upbringing. So we were talking about football, and Dyra was number one, in tackles, right? I was number two. Nobody ever remembers the number two guy. Okay. We're about the same size. I may have been just a little bit bigger than he was. We were both bench pressing about the same amount of weight. However, he did have like the Pee Wee, the Bantam League, like football. I never played the Bantam League. My mom wouldn't let me play because the games were on Sundays, so I wasn't allowed to play with the Eastside Bulldogs, or the Azarelli Colts, or any one of these local teams. However, once I did, once junior high, that was my first year playing football, and so I played with utilizing my strength, my agility, my speed. Those were the tools that I utilized, right? And it made me number two. I'm gonna tell you the difference between Dyra and I. He had all those things that I just mentioned, but he also was thinking. He was using his head. If he wanted a lineman to shoot to the inside, he knew how to line up in such a way as to give the lineman such a gap as to make him think, okay, this is how he's going to get in, not knowing that it's a trap set for him. I'm just playing. Okay? He's strategizing. It's a big difference. So, which brings me to the point in this game of life. Are you just playing? Or are you strategizing? Which actually brings me to another point. Has anyone ever taught you how to plan, how to strategize? See, because I believe this is necessary education. I'm not going to lie. No one taught me how to think. I was taught how to act, how to behave. I was never taught how to think. It wasn't until later on in life that I caught on. I believe that my greatest education came after formal education. I went to college. I have some college. I dropped out of college. I had my high school diploma. But I never had the drive or even had the conversation. I even told my friend Dyra the only reason why I went to college because my girlfriend at the time was going to college. Now, I couldn't afford to go to the same college that she was going to, but the conversations we were having led towards, okay, yeah, I'm going to go to college. Some of my friends were going to college, so that was the conversation. It was the thing to do. I was acting. I was taking action. But I wasn't thinking. I wasn't strategizing. It's a difference. There's a lot of information out here that's just being streamed, good and bad, and disinformation as well. And so I know that it makes it kind of difficult to sit down and really put your mind to what's going on and come to a reasonable conclusion. But that is better for you to do than to just listen to your influencer. It's possible for somebody to be loud and wrong. You heard that, right? It's possible to be loud and wrong. And if you got a lot of people following behind you, they will share that perspective. People kind of share the perspective of who they follow, who they like. So you have some people that's out here that's just loud and wrong. My thing is that you guys need to use your own head to think. Don't just act. I just, like I said, I was just using my speed, agility, my strength. Those things got me to number 2. Like I said, but who remembers the number 2 guy? The glory is going to go to numero uno. The other thing is, I've always attempted to be a diplomat, and so that at times it would give me a loss of words. Just like now, looking for, and even those are simple words to look for. But in diplomacy, so I'm going to take off my hat of diplomacy for a second and just really be real. We have an election. We're in an election cycle. We have seen what has happened, what we've gotten from these political parties, whether it be Republican or Democrat. Not even though we don't realize that we, established the Republican Party. We were the first Republicans. All throughout the, along that the seaboard from New York all the way down to Carolinas, Florida, all of that. The history shows, and that's the reason why they talk about the Reconstruction. What were they reconstructing? What were they rebuilding? Or what was being merged in here? And so we really need to, I believe that we need to take a look at history from a different perspective, not just from what we've been told. There's too much information out here. But you and your due diligence should Google that. You're like, what are you talking about? We was the first Republicans. Well, you can Google that. You can find out that we were. What we haven't been told was that after the Ku Klux Klan was formed to destroy the Republicans, that after so much death, we came up with a plan to decide to be Democrats to stop the killing. So in other words, we decided to bow down to slavery, to be subject. This is facts. You can look that up. This is why you're a Democrat today. And the reason why people fight so hard to keep you as a Democrat. I mean, think about it. I mean, look at the history. I mean, that's what I'm saying is look at the history. Don't just go off of what I'm saying. Do your own research. And so so that's the reason why I can't, just call somebody a coon and this, that, and the other, even though I hear a lot of Democrats now, because a person wants to they siding with Trump, they try to call him a coon. When it's like, hold on a second, man. You was already wrong. See, I'm going back to being loud and wrong. You was wrong when you put Biden and Kamala Harris in office. And the people who was rolling with Trump, like myself at the time, tried to warn you. Because they didn't turn against Trump until after he told you that COVID was some BS, after he went against Fauci. And he wasn't saying that COVID didn't exist, but he was letting you know that the level to which they have blown COVID up was bullshit. Just putting it plain and simple. And when he went against the system of how the direction that they want to go in, he got to go. And look at it. Look at what they're doing now. I'm not even going to go over the talking points. What I want to say is that President Donald Trump was a great steward. He was an excellent steward of what he received from the Obama administration. Obama did some great things economically. Trump added to that. He brought the steel industry back to America. Yeah, American steel was non-existent because we was getting it from other countries like China. Yeah. And so he brought the steel industry back. You can check the record, not just the agenda or the narrative that's laid out. Do your actual research for yourself. Use your own head. Strategize so then you can strategize when you have proper information. You can't strategize without proper information, else you just moving, you just doing stuff. That's what I was saying about me on the football field, being the number 2 guy. I'm out there, hustling, I'm moving, I'm getting it, but I'm not getting it with this. I'm getting to the ball. I'm using brute strength, muscle, speed, and agility. While my man's is using his head. He number 1. It's a difference. It's a difference. Even in life, you have to have a strategy. How many of us are just moving? I came up like that. There was a few people that contributed. I really respect for the things that they did, like John Chandler. You may not know John Chandler, but John Chandler was a great man. He was a man's man. He took care of his house, had his things in order. He helped out the kids in the community. Took us to because his boys played, baseball and football. I didn't get, like I said, I couldn't go to the football games, but I got to go to the baseball games. We're all piled in the van. I learned a lot of things by using my hands with John, and then other wisdom that he passed on. So it's important. It's important to share what you have, especially with the youth. Hey, you got some people that's right next to you that are just moving, that are just actors. And they may not know how to ask you to do this or that. What's wrong with you having that information and finding a way to share it? Especially with these kids. How to think. And especially men for the boys. Listen, if you was raised by a woman and you are kind of emotional, you don't need to be training up these little boys to be emotional. Because an emotional man, emotional boy, emotional teenager will kill you. That testosterone mixed with that estrogen, even the thinking, I would say there's a word for the estrogenic thinking. It's time to kill the nonsense. We can't figure out who's who and what's what. We don't know what a woman is. That's crazy. And you got mamas and sisters and aunties. We're just going to discard biology. Why is it that we have to adjust, have to adapt to a new system of thinking rather than this new system integrate into the established one? So why I gotta be sensitive to LGBTQ, but the LGBTQ don't have to be sensitive to tradition? But I don't understand that. How did this even come to be? Where down is now up and up is now down. It's okay for people to have a different opinion than you, especially if you haven't established your point or the foundation for your opinion. You're giving your opinion based off of your feelings, and you talking to someone who's telling you facts. I mean, I've only just come to realize that people understand what you're talking about, but they choose to ignore. I really found it out watching TikTok, watching somebody live on TikTok, and they actually admitted it, or what they choose to ignore. So it's like you could see, oh, you know that this is a fact, but you choose to ignore that. So then that loosed me, really. Because I've become so passionate, my blood pressure raising up. All because I'm trying to get them to understand. Not realizing that they understood the whole time. They just choose to ignore. So who taught them that? Taught them how to do that. Taught them to ignore facts, like that's okay to do. This reminds me of the movie Don't Look Up. Because your political party says don't do this and don't do that, you don't do it. Whole time destruction is on its way. Destruction is on its way. Our borders have been breached. We have military-aged men and women who have crossed our borders. I'm talking about in the millions. Or over 1 million. The borders are wide open. I was in Jules the other day, and I heard someone, it was just this woman and a military-aged man. They were walking through, and I heard them speaking in their language. It sounded like it was Ukrainian or Russian or something. It was somewhere from over there. I've heard of them giving vouchers to these people. $7,000 a month. Now that you see that Ukraine was some BS, they had to find a new route to come in. See, because we're in an age of information. And so when things are moving a lot faster than they used to, so we can see things. So now the conversation has been out there and nobody believes half of this crap that they're putting out. And so Ukraine was such a mess that they had to abandon it. Listen, I have a clip of where they were talking of how the Ukrainians were surrendering. The very next day was when the Hamas, bombs, now they bombing Israel. What timing? What timing? See, because they had to convince everybody to get behind Ukraine. And it was so much illegal stuff going on that it was just so messy that they couldn't get behind it. And all this stuff got found out. So now they find a different route because they need to go to war. There's too many of you so-called Negroes out here finding out that you are indigenous to this land. And this is your land. There's too many of you out here saying that you want your land back. Which is what you should be saying. Instead of trying to vote for these parties, why aren't we creating our own party with our own lobbyists that for our own interests? Now, if you don't hear no so-called leader saying these things, any political leader saying these things, what the hell are we talking about? What the hell are we talking about? You happy being subjugated? You're satisfied with police being able to racially profile? You're fine with that? being second-class citizen, being a 3/5 of a person, as long as you're out of proper person, as long as we're not considering ourselves indigenous, as long as we're not saying that this is our land, that's the only way we're going to get anything. We haven't been slaves, we've been POWs. Now that we've accepted the program, the indoctrination, we're slaves. Yeah, I can say we're slaves now, except for those who have awakened and won't out. Those are POWs. It's a difference. And some of you might be fine with being a slave. Yeah, some of you might be fine with being a slave. You love the way the system operates. And I get that. Especially if it's work for you. If you found your niche in it, I understand that. I could get it. I could get it. But collectively, none of us are free if one of us is not free. That's the bottom line. So we have people who are loud and wrong. You looking right at what the Democrats have done. I don't have to name flaws, but the things that they've done to attempt to mandate, they've given away money. They've not given money to the people. Maui. Man, come on. Come on. I'm trying not to, get overly excited about this. But we look at what's going on. How they funneled all that money into Ukraine. And you at home starving. You at home making it check to check. You barely making it check to check. Your ends aren't meeting. And they giving away trillions of dollars. Well, it's all counterfeit anyway. I guess maybe that's what they're saying. It's all fake anyway. It ain't gold, silver. It's all fiat. And they ain't gonna lie to you about crypto. They keep you away from it while they all hoarding it, while they all buying it up now, while they creating ETFs. I just want us to think and to try for a second to use our own heads and come to conclusions and to weigh and to balance these things when we're looking at voting for parties. I like Trump. I like what Trump has done, his stewardship. I like his position of not mandating us to do this or that, of not violating the Constitution. We are looking at things from the wrong perspective. As a slave and thinking that you're free, you might look at the what they call the insurrection when they took over the Capitol. Those people within their right to take over the Capitol. It's already outlined. Whenever the government comes so corrupt, it's the duty of the people. I can't quote it. I'm just paraphrasing. But you're only looking at it from you're thinking that you're free and that you got the same rights, but really you're upset because you're really displaying that you're like, hey, how can they do that? I'm talking about within the constructs of the law. And I'm not justifying what they did. I'm just looking at it from a different perspective. From the perspective of someone who's patriotic, who's looking at it from the republic for which it stands. How did we end up in a democracy? Which is ruled by the mob. That's what democracy actually means. Ruled by the mob. How did we end up in a democracy? Everybody's talking about democracy this, democracy that. It's against the interests of democracy. I think democracy is something to be against. I call it demonocracy. Because it's ruled by the mob. That means that it's okay to be wrong and loud. So, again, if I'm not I know that I'm making sense. Everybody else does things for their interest. I'm sure the Japanese, have lobbyists. Japanese American have lobbyists to lobby for their interests. All these other people, either that or they, because of their international relationship, their treaty affords them certain rights that we just can't see because we don't know their treaty. We haven't read that. That's our limited knowledge. And then we sit back well, they do this and they do that. Well, how can they do? How these people get all these tax breaks and so forth? Not really taking a look at self and stop looking at why these people are getting it and start asking, why aren't you getting it? What qualifies these individuals to get these things? That's a good question, because then you can apply that to yourself and meet the qualifications. Or is there a barricade for you meeting those qualifications? Such as being out of proper person, having the status of a Negro, black, or colored, being out of proper person. That's what everybody talking about, status correction. That's what this whole thing is supposed to be about. Getting back into your proper person as an indigenous person. Whether you can claim to be an indigenous Indian or indigenous Moor, which in my mind is synonymous. It's synonymous, but you can look through history and see where they changed the identity of the people. They changed you and I's identity. On over a 40-year time, they were able to wipe away your knowledge of who you are, even as having Indian in your blood or having Indian in your family. Everybody, come on now, that's such a big saying growing up. But me, I knew that I had Indian in my family. I knew that my grandmother and great grandmother full blood Seminole. Now I don't know the name of who they were before that, but I will have that very soon, because I want to go to the original name, because that's who I am. That's who we are. But either way, having that name or not, I know that I'm indigenous and that my people are indigenous to this land. We didn't come over here on no ship. We're not African American. We're African nothing. No disrespect to African peoples. That's like being a Cameroon. But see, the name Cameroon means little shrimp, if I'm not mistaken. The people didn't call themselves little shrimp. The people who occupied them called them little shrimp. And that name still lasts today. All over the world, people are waking up and they are tired of this system and they want a change. We can't be sitting over here trying to hold on to what needs to be done away with. We need to be in proper person, to have our proper status, to perform the Minnesota 220 rule. No matter how people think and feel about it, that's actually just wide open. That's just apparent knowledge on status, on qualifying your status, claiming your identity, with your affidavit of beneficial ownership. It's an actual law called Minnesota Rule 220. So that's why you hear people talking about the UCC one and making sure you put your UCC, put a lien against yourself. It's a lot of stuff that's being discussed. That's the reason for this, the reason why they're doing what they're doing. It's the system, it's over with, it's been dissolved. When Queen Elizabeth died, they performed a ceremony. It's called a wand breaking ceremony, where they broke her wand and put it on top of her. I think it was the chancellor. Standing there with Prince Charles or King Charles now, as the chancellor broke the wand and placed the broken wand on top of the casket. So the spell has been broken, because only witches and warlocks have wands. I'm not saying whether one is a good witch or a bad witch. But I believe she was the wicked witch of the world, not the West. She was the wicked witch of the world. But the spell has been broken. So now they're trying to cast a new spell. And they need a new illusion. They need to come with a new problem for you to say, this is a problem. Someone needs to take care of it. And then the same people who created the problem says, hey, I have a solution. But it's going to cost you your freedom. You have to sign back up. Listen, again, they're military-aged men here on this soil. If you don't have a missile, a gauge at home, a pistol, what's it called, a blick, switch, and you gangs, y'all need to make sure now you got a real target. Because they coming. But are you going to bow down? And at the same time, I understand that all those drive-bys ain't you. Because they just caught another Caucasian with a skin suit to try to look like one of us. Busting shots in Chicago. We've been saying that. We're like, how am I going to say it now? You got all these cameras and all this stuff up here, and you can't catch, you know what I'm saying, these people who doing all this killing? It don't make sense. What's the purpose of the cameras? Just for tickets, for red lights, to catch you speeding, catch you running stop signs and so forth? That's the only purpose? Come on. Come on, man. It don't make sense. All these coordinated efforts. But it's time. I already told y'all over a year ago. Start getting your house in order. Get your water. You need to have some water stocked up. Some non-perishables. Some peas, some corn, some potatoes. Some rice. Get you some boxes and boxes of rice. Because it's going to come in handy. I told y'all about canning. If you know how to can, you should have been canning. Time is coming very soon. Because all those Walmarts, FEMA centers. Y'all worry about the wrong things out here. Get your tribe together and link your tribe with tribes. Y'all need to be talking about armament. And what we gonna do if an invasion happened? You just gonna go ahead and fold? You churches, these conversations you need to have. Yeah, it might violate your 501c3. You need a 508c1a anyway. But you didn't collect it off of the system. You should have enough to be able to sustain. Just like the dope game. It wasn't supposed to get into it and then sell dope forever. Supposed to get that, and just like the Italians and all those other people did. They got in, they washed that money up and made it clean. Even though they probably still doing illegal business. Same thing we're supposed to be doing. Again, it's a big difference between acting and having a strategy. Anyone can direct an actor. You can't direct a strategist. Because even while you directing, he's strategizing. Within your direction, his strategy is made perfect. See what I'm saying? There's a difference between just acting and strategizing. And so that was a great conversation great talk that I had with my friend, because it you know, it further confirmed some things, and we need to be teaching our children how to think, how to come to a conclusion, how to weigh the idea in the balance. Because a lot of us don't know. When I was a kid, I didn't know. I was just acting. I was just doing. Just like losing weight. I was always a fat kid. Then I was going to private school, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. And so I really was just, let loose. But then, when my mother finally, because, she was, we were going to a white Baptist, a so-called white Baptist church school, Faith Baptist Christian Academy. I was allowed to, ninth grade, to come back to the public school. Oh man, that summer, eighth grade summer, I did all kind of ran. That's how I ended up going to play football, because I was swole. I was running, lifting weights, push-ups. I was doing everything because I wanted to be right. You know what I'm saying? Going into, man, come on. That was just using will. So I didn't have that. I didn't even put that together through knowledge. That was like, almost like survival. I'm about to go in here with all these, and then you got girls and so forth. I want to, look my best. That part was like common sense, but that wasn't thinking. That didn't take the elements necessary to formulate thought and to come to a conclusion, to come to a rational conclusion. I was just doing something. Even though I had a goal, though. That's what made it different, was that I had a goal. Because you can sometimes be out there blindly, but have a goal and achieve that goal, get somewhat of the goal. Because you have a goal. Yeah, there's a vision. There's a right to vision to make it plain. So you got a plain vision to meet that goal. But that don't mean that you have everything written out and have an understanding of what it is that you have written out, so that you could effectively meet that goal, so that you know that you're there when you're there. I've been there and didn't know that I was there. See, that's a difference. Just like when people talk about the glory of God, I have had the presence of the Lord upon me, didn't know it until hindsight. Everybody around you know it. Oh, they can see it clearly. Hoping that you don't see it. And without proper knowledge, you can't be effective. You even walk in the fullness of that glory. However, I believe that's the reason why the Lord sends. He said, who is blind except the Lord's servant? Who is deaf except he who the Lord sends? You know what I'm saying? In other words, if I could see, I would never enter into the cave, because I could see the lion from afar off standing in the cave, the mouth of the cave. If I could hear, I would not enter into the cave, because I could hear the roar of the lion from afar off. But how else are you going to get you going to that cave? Because in your natural mind, you wouldn't. But he wants to demonstrate his strength. So he'll sing you in that cave. Have you act like a baby, falling all over that lion. Lion want to tear you to pieces, but he can't, because he's bound. You don't know what it is. It's just something, you're like, what is Hey, listen, I'm just talking about my experience. And I've stood on some stages with some mighty people. I've had opportunities, even ones that I was blind to. I'm saying to say, I've already said, if you have the information, pass it on, especially to these youth. At least the idea of how to think, how to properly formulate a thought, how to put it into balance, if nothing else. Lastly, use your own head. Take the information, glean this information from these different sources, and then fact check them, and then do your research from there. Because after you, that's leading you to the land. Then if you want to go into the land, now that's where your research is. First, now you fact check. Okay, there's these breadcrumbs led to this. Now I'm this far. Now I can explore this whole thing, and there's methods to that exploration. But we are in a dire time now. Voting for these parties is not what we need to be doing. We need to be establishing our own party. No more voting Republican or Democrat. We need to establish our own party with our own players so we can have our own congressmen. We can have our own lobbyists to lobby on our own behalf. This is what they don't want. What they don't want is for you to be united. Yeah. That's the reason why this whole thing is about destroying the black family, the so-called black family. All about destroying the so-called black family. Make sure your man ain't in the house. Make sure that he doesn't have the ability to provide for his family. And then even if he is attempting to provide for his family, give him every obstacle possible, all the way down to illegality. Because that's the greatest fear, or the greatest threat. I think it was J. Edgar Hoover said that the greatest threat to American society is the unification of the black family, so-called black family. The unification of the Negro. Why? Because this is your land. Eventually, through unification, we'll start talking and having ideas transmitted, towards one another and come to conclusions. And with those conclusions, we're going to want what all people want. Don't just take action. Take strategic action.